Hello, hello. How's everybody doing? Hope you're doing great. Hope you're doing amazing. I know I am. Hi. Uh, Hope you're doing great. Um, what are the updates? Are there any updates? There aren't any, really. I'm just trying to be a better. Okay, so I gotta show y'all this. This is a copy of my ID. I don't know if you can see it, but it's all scrambled up. Look how, bro. What is that? Okay, that's me. Good looking dude, right? Now look at this. That's crazy. Now if you squish it a little bit, bro. Y'all seen this? Look at this. Funny. Alright. How's everybody doing? My name is Shad. I'm a motion designer, and I'm doing illustration every day just to prove to people that it ain't that hard. It's really hot. It is really hot right now, and I want to get out of this shirt, and I want to get out of this shirt under it. But I can't really do that because we're on stream, and I'm insecure about my body. And not even that, I just don't want to show my body. I want to show it to the people who deserve seeing it. Mm-hmm. So, first of all, I'm just gonna try to move this blinder a little bit. It's just maybe I can get like some air going. Man, it's really hot. Okay, hold on. I also have like the lights on, at least this one light on. So if I'm gonna like open the blinders, people can easily see like the insides of the room. And we don't want that. So, my hair looks crazy. Uh, okay, so last time, which is yesterday, this is what. Oh, right, I said we're going to watch a video every day. By the way, I feel like I'm getting a little better at drawing hands. Don't y'all think? Obviously, you know, uh, these are not perfect. But I mean, look at this. I mean, I don't think I would have been able to draw a hand in this complicated position, right? At my first days, right? I don't think I would have been able to do that. Right? These are all boxes, boxes. These are all twisted boxes. Okay, this, we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that either. We don't talk about that baby. Oh, this is studying. Jeez. Very interesting stuff. Hey, that's not bad. That is not bad. Maybe if it was 1 minute. Maybe if it was like this, like if if I'm to do it differently. Nope, not the yellow. Maybe I can do it like this. And this one over here, we have the wrist. And then this one right here. And then we have the triangle. This right here. This is going maybe like this. This one goes like this, even though that looks smaller than it. So do that, and then these two kind of like go together. Go here, and then here and here, and then I want to make this go like this, and after it that's kind of like basically it. It's not perfect, but it's not bad either. It's like how I imagine it as well. It's not like trying to copy it like 100%. You know, which is what I'm trying to do. Actually, I should get the idea out of my head that I should copy it like 100% the way it is. I can add some kinks to it that are good, that are mine, you know. Obviously this looks a little messed up, but that's okay. Alright, so yes, I think we're doing the course by Brent Eviston. Brent. Since we have the subscription, I said why not? Why not do this? Also the course is like impeccable, so alright, this is orientation. We've done orientation. This is gesture trailer. Alright. Wait a minute. Let me turn down the music and change the window to this. This? Okay. Doing surgery on a grape. Alright. Let's put the subtitles on. Let's listen to this thing. Gesture drawing. The art and science of figure drawing. With Brent Eviston. Gesture. Alright, is there no sound or... orientation? Where is the sound?
Welcome to the Art and Science of Figure Drawing. I'll be your instructor, Brent Eviston. In this course, you're going to learn about one of the most important skills you can learn in figure drawing. It's called gesture drawing. Now, gesture drawing is at the heart of the figure drawing process. At the core of every more finished and rendered figure drawing is a dynamic gesture drawing. Now, as essential as gesture drawing is, it's actually one of the least understood parts of the figure drawing process. So let me try and explain what gesture drawing actually is. Gesture drawing is a dynamic form of figure drawing that focuses on action, dynamism, and movement. A good gesture drawing distills a pose down to its most essential components. Now, gesture drawings are usually done from shorter pose times, so the longest pose you're going to be working from in this course is 15 minutes. And the shortest pose time is actually only 30 seconds. Now, I know that doesn't seem like a lot of time, but this gives you an opportunity to draw expressively. Good gesture drawings have a sense of dynamism and vitality that only comes from moving the pencil quickly, keeping it moving, and by focusing on the big picture instead of getting stuck drawing tiny details. In this course, as with any drawing course, practice is essential. Watching these lessons is not enough. You really have to be willing to put in the time and do the practice. So here's how this course works. This course contains 12 lessons, and each lesson focuses on an essential figure drawing skill. Each lesson also comes with at least one practice reel. And each practice reel has timed poses that have been specifically selected so that you can get the most out of the lesson that the practice reel accompanies. Now, as I've mentioned before, the pose times are pretty short, and this is to keep your pencil moving and to make sure that you're distilling the figure down to its more essential components. Now, many of you will find these shorter pose times challenging, but I want to remind you that this is an opportunity to draw expressively. But if these shorter pose times really are just too short for you, you are welcome to pause the practice reel. That being said, being able to draw quickly and efficiently is one of the best things that gesture drawing will teach you, and it will prepare you to draw in front of a live model. So hopefully at some point you get the experience of actually drawing from a live model, but it's important to remember that live models can't hold poses for long times. So if you can draw quickly, something that gesture drawing will teach you how to do, a 10 to 20 minute pose will seem much longer. You'll have much more time to capture what you want than if you draw really slowly. Now, it's important for you to understand that these lessons provide a wealth of information, and oftentimes watching them just once will not be enough. I would encourage you to watch these lessons multiple times. I'd also like to remind you that I'm giving you the minimum amount of practice. So if you really want to streamline your figure drawing experience, I would recommend doubling, tripling, or even quadrupling the amount of practice you're doing. Go through the practice reels multiple times. I would also recommend that you're all set up to draw before starting the practice reel. So on that note, let's talk about materials and how to set up your drawing space. In this course, I would recommend using 18 by 24 inch paper. If you're on a budget, newsprint is just fine. I'll be drawing on 18 by 24 inch white drawing paper. Now, one of the things I love about drawing is that a wide range of materials will work for this course. You'll see me drawing with an assortment of oil-based colored pencils that have just been sharpened with an electric pencil sharpener. But most pencils will work. If all you have is access to graphite pencils, that's totally fine. I would recommend using something in the low B range, like a 2B, 3B, or 4B. Even if all you have is a simple yellow number 2 pencil, that's totally fine. You can even do your drawings on a tablet. I often encourage my students just to go to the art store and try things out, see what feels good, see what you like, be willing to experiment. The only kinds of materials I wouldn't recommend for this course would be charcoal because it smears a lot and it's difficult to control, or mechanical pencils because they simply don't have the expressive range of other kinds of more traditional pencils. But again, the materials are really up to you. Another material that I would highly recommend is a drawing board. So if you take a look behind me, you can see that I've got my paper on top of a drawing board. It provides a good amount of stability. I'm using a hollow wooden drawing board with separate clips. You could also use a basic masonite drawing board that comes with metal clips attached. And while you're watching these lessons and drawing from the practice reels, I would highly recommend watching it on a bigger screen. Although you can take this course on your phone, the drawings and diagrams are pretty detailed, and you'll get the best experience and see the most by watching them on a bigger screen. So let me show you a couple of different ways that you can set up to practice from the practice reels. This is how I set up and draw. I have a tablet on the left side of my drawing board because I'm right-handed, so the paper is on my right-hand side. Another way that I often draw is just by pulling a chair up to my computer desk and placing the drawing board on my knees and letting the drawing board just rest on the edge of the desk. But as with anything else in the drawing process, feel free to experiment to see what drawing setup works best for you. In this course, we're going to be working with a female model, but the tools and techniques you're going to learn in this course, with a few obvious exceptions, will work for both male and female models. So realize that even though we'll be drawing from a female model, that nearly everything you're learning in this course will be just as valuable when you're drawing from a male model. Now this is very important for you to understand. In this course, I'm trying to give you a true figure drawing experience. I'm trying to replicate the experience of being in a real figure drawing studio. And that means we're going to be working from photographs of a fully nude model. So it's important that you're mature enough to go through this course to work from a fully nude model and to behave appropriately if you decide to ask questions or make comments. If you're not sure whether a comment is inappropriate, it's probably best not to make it. It's also important that you're using the anatomical terms for body parts that I'm teaching you in this course. Try not to use any slang. So now let's talk a little bit about anatomy. In this course, you're going to be introduced to dozens of anatomical landmarks. Now, for those of you that are new to figure drawing, this may seem like a lot of anatomy, but really it's just scratching the surface. I'm introducing you to enough anatomy just to give you a sense of the kinds of things you'll need to know to draw the figure. Now, when I'm talking about anatomy, I'll actually be using the traditional Latin terms. The reason is that if you decide to learn more about anatomy, those are the terms you're going to be exposed to. Those are the terms that instructors are going to use, and it also gives us a common language. That being said, if you don't remember every single Latin term that I'm throwing out in this course, that's okay. It's much more important that you understand the concepts. Now, this is also critical for you to understand. Although this is a beginning figure drawing course, it is not a beginning drawing course. Figure drawing is a pretty advanced subject, so you should already have some fundamental drawing skills before starting this course. You should already be comfortable drawing basic shapes and volumes, using basic measuring techniques, and using contour lines to describe form. And that means both inner and outer contours as well as overlaps. You should also have a basic understanding of the shading process. Now, if any of these concepts or ideas seem unfamiliar to you, I would highly recommend going back and taking the courses in the original Art and Science of Drawing series. Now, if you're a true beginner, I would recommend starting with the Basic Skills course in the Art and Science of Drawing, going through the series, and then coming back to this course to study figure drawing. Now, if you already have some drawing experience, but you just want a refresher on these ideas, there are some courses in the original Art and Science of Drawing series that I would highly recommend revisiting. That would be the Form and Space course, the Measuring and Proportion course, the Contours course, and the Shading courses. If you're not sure, you can always start going through this course, and if you feel there's anything you need to revisit, you can always go back and take more fundamental courses then. I'll be giving you reminders throughout the course about the basic skills required and where to develop them if you don't already have them. There's one more thing I want to talk about before you start the course. If possible, I would encourage you to find and join a local figure drawing group in your area. They're more common than you think, and drawing regularly from a real live model is an excellent experience and a great way to put into practice the skills that you're learning in this course. Now, before you start the actual lessons, I'm going to ask you to watch a video called What is Gesture Drawing? That'll really explore the history and what gesture drawing is all about and give you some key concepts that you need to understand before you start the course. And then when you're ready, I will see you in the lessons. Well, I'm thrilled that you've joined this course. So welcome to the gesture section of the Art and Science of Figure Drawing. So good luck. Have fun, practice, and I look forward to seeing you in the course.
Sure. Here we go. This is the second video. I love this dude just because like it feels what he's doing like feels authentic, and he's like he loves what he's doing, and he's really a good teacher. So that's I'm going to try to follow with his lesson. In the meantime, we are going to do some hand drawings. What did I name the stream? I've been doing this for 3 months. Yeah, isn't that crazy? I have been doing this for 3 months. It's insane. Alright, this is a piece. Okay, so this is what I'm gonna be doing. Oh my god, CapCut. I'm going to draw 3 hands. And then I'm gonna watch a video about drawing hands. And then I'm going to draw 3 more hands. This is like the plan. Hopefully it works like I said. If it don't and we ran out of time, then that's fine. Okay, we're already like 20 minutes in, so let's get to it. So this is like this. And this is like this. Okay. And this is interesting. Like we have like this thing going out. You see? So, okay. We get here, right? And then we're doing this, and then this goes like this. Right, it's okay to get a little blocky. I don't mind. All right. Now we're here. These two fingers, we have the same size here, so we're gonna cut them off here. This is my kingdom come. This is my kingdom come. This is my come. Oh, sorry. There, that's one. And two, we have they'll get a little chunky on me. There we go. There. Then we go with this one now. We have this one right here, and then this one sorted lychees. Oop. See, now that does not look natural. That I hate. There must be like another way we can do this. So there's that. And then we have this, right? And then we have like the tip, basically, the tip of the finger. This is my cum. This is my cum. That looks a bit weird, but that's okay. There's a lesson about drawing hands in the figure drawing lesson by Brent Evanston, so I'm looking forward to that. Brain Evanston. It's very weird that I draw like a few fingers like fine, and then the other two just look very small compared to it. I need to be able to draw like the fingers evenly. So maybe I should not just focus on each finger individually. Maybe I should like draw apart the part of them like go through them basically just yeah, this is some. It's not bad. Like if I were to pick something like if that's like something fucked up about wrong with his hands, I'd say it's the proportions. Oh, very interesting. This is my cum. This is my cum. Da, 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 da. Where did I draw that? Oh my god, bruh. That's alright. Da, 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 da. This is my cum. This is my music. Should I change the music? I feel like I'm getting used to it. Like if this music doesn't start playing, like this serves like as like a trigger for me. You know, that I know I'm going to start working on or drawing when this music starts playing. Alright. This is a very interesting pose. Let's make it smaller. Okay, this is very interesting. Because look at that. Right? And then we have this coming out of here. And this is the triangle. Right? And this is the actual finger. Kid named Finger? Yeah, kid named Finger. And then we have one here. And then one here. I don't know. Let's not make it too dark. And then... Wait, these are the knuckles? We start making the knuckles. This is one knuckle. Two knuckles. Actually, this is one knuckle. Two knuckles. And then... yeah, nothing more. This person has only 3 fingers on this side. Alright. Now, we have this right here, so it goes like this and then like this. I'm not trying to add too much detail, so we're just gonna like draw it on 2 parts. That's totally fine. The knuckles follow in here, so whoop. Now go here. Not too much. Yeah. And then we have this one goes here. And then all the scrambled stuff with the fingers going on here. Bro. That's all I'm gonna do. That's all I'm gonna do with it. This does not look bad. And I would say this, like, for an animator, this is not a good, this is not a bad, like, hand to draw. Like, I animate this, you know, as an animator, obviously animating hands is hard. But this is like, you can give this to an animator and they'd be like, okay, like, I can work with this. You know what I mean? Yeah. Alright, the other hand. I don't know if this is like the distance is right, but I just want to see my ability to draw this part, because this part is very important in the hand. Yeah, I feel like we can go shorter with it, or not. No, we're good. There. And then we have the finger. Kid name Finger? Yeah, kid name Finger. First let's draw this part. We can overshoot, doesn't matter. And then basically we cut it in here. And then we have this. Basically this is like the structure of how the fingers are going to be. We can break this one maybe like here. And this one goes here. Right? And then this one is going to be off of it, goes here. And then these are just going to be like whatever the fuck, right? Okay, this is honestly so far so good. Maybe the fingers can get a little taller if like we're working on this, but that's like it's alright. No? There. Then we can wipe this. It ain't looking bad. It ain't looking bad. Like, gonna add some nails to this. It'll look convincing. You know? Alright, the third one is, oh my god. Okay. This is a toughie. Okay. This is interesting because I can like do some work on foreshortening as well. So this is fun. We're doing like something like this, maybe. Yeah. And then we have this right here. So we go from here to here. And then this one, shape. There's that. And then we have the actual hand. Alright. This is like straight up just a stretched hand, so I don't think there's going to be a problem with it. We can actually see this is like nice. Because we can see like this is here. This is pretty stretched out for us. Like you can see like this is here. And how this finger can go like this. And like this. So this is the finger. Alright. And then we have the actual 4 other fingers. So you go here. But they're hidden by the other hands. Now, I don't think I'm going to be drawing the other hand. Just because it gets super annoying and complicated. And I don't want to like make it complicated for myself. I'm just trying to get the basics like down. And that's what I'm going to try to do. Like these fingers are funny to me. Right? They don't look right. And I don't get the shape of the fingers yet. Like what shape should they be to look real enough? Like sometimes, like you know how in cartoons hands can be like, and especially fingers, they can be like blocky or they can be like stretched out or they can be any shape, but they still look anatomically correct somehow, right? So I'm trying to get that. If I can get that, like I'm good. You know what I mean? I don't need the detail. I don't need anything. I just want to get something that looks believable. There, I guess. sure. It's fucked up. That's embarrassing. Alright, let's look up a video. How to draw hands. I think I've seen every fucking tutorial. Marco Bucci or Bucci. Oh, look at it, claws. I love claws. Okay, we're gonna watch the video. This one. Just because they use claws for reference. I think. Or they explain the claws, I don't know. Let's see. This is 19.
Hey everyone, I've got a clip here from the animated movie Klaus. When I push play, watch the hands specifically, okay? Here we go.
New postman, Smearensburg, which is on an island which is surrounded by water, which I need a boat to get to, which you have. Are we starting to connect the dots?
Did you catch the amount of hand poses there? It's pretty remarkable. I mean, we all know that hands are tough to draw. But whoever animated this can't just draw hands. They can draw hands like it's nothing. And we want to get to this level, do we not? So I've got a few concise chapters here that will help demystify hands. We'll begin with some 3D rough-ins. Here in this 3D program, I have a flat plane. Let's do a quick drawing here. Most of you should be able to draw this no problem. Just a rectangle with a bit of perspective. Alright, I'll tweak that 3D form here a bit. And let's try and draw this. I have to make sure that hump is looking right. And I'll use some of those grid lines to draw over the form and help me understand the perspective here. From there, I can be more sure of myself. Alright, good. I'll tweak the 3D camera view and try drawing the same form from this angle. The added difficulty here is that we can now see the top side and bottom side of the form. But just like before, the grid lines will help me understand the 3D structure, also shading in anything underneath to further clarify that. It's good practice to try and see through the form and make sure your lines are tracking and connecting properly. Sometimes you'll want to draw those invisible lines, which I'll do here as the form is getting more complex now. So some of these lines are not actually visible to me, but they help me track form in 3D space. I'm also drawing grid lines that are invisible. Again, this is all helpful in feeling out that 3D space. Alright, let's do one more here. Tweak the 3D model, and in this drawing I'm doing the same thing, tracking what's behind, getting those grid lines in, shading what's underneath, and it's looking good. I put together a little page of these for you to study from. Go ahead and pause the video if you like. But back to this drawing here reminds me of a hand already. This exercise gets at one of the reasons hands are so tough. There's lots of twisting and bending of the form, and because of that, it's very common to see both the palmar and dorsal side of the hand simultaneously. This brings us to chapter 2, where I'd like to go over some hand structure. Let's talk about how the skeleton informs the contours of the hand. If we shoot a line down the pinky side, the bones allow it to continue pretty uninterrupted. On the thumb side, that's not the case. The first break happens here, at the very base of the thumb. Then that line continues at a sharp angle as the bones form our opposable digit. These bones on the thumb side are near the surface. Go ahead and feel them right now on your own hand. Let's go back and look at one of these hands. Notice how that structural information informs the drawing. Due to those bones and angles, there's a lot more space on the thumb side than on the pinky side. The same observation holds up on the dorsal side of the hand. That characteristic difference in shape between the thumb side and the pinky side. Looking at the thumb side, it's almost like the letter L. We're going to be using that L shape a lot in this lesson. Okay, back to this drawing. You might wonder what this little blip is on the pinky side. That's muscle, not bone. More of that muscle group is visible on the palmar side of the hand. The other major muscle group, visible only on the palmar side of the hand, forms that familiar mound of flesh around the thumb. Okay, so let's do a series of partial hand drawings combining all the information we've learned so far. I'm not drawing the thumb or fingers as we haven't covered that yet, but with our 3D rough-in studies and some general knowledge of where the bones and a few muscles lie, you should be able to distinguish between the palmar and dorsal side of the hand, as well as the overall dimension and flow of the hand. Worth a reminder that when you're seeing the palmar side of the hand, those two muscle groups contribute a lot of volume, and I kind of define that volume with those grid lines that I'm using lightly over the drawing. Also, I'm using that L shape in all of these to differentiate between the thumb side and the pinky side. When you do these studies, I recommend keeping them loose and rough, but do a lot of them. Doing lots of repetitions is what trains your brain, rather than perfecting one drawing. Alright, the next bit of hand structure has to do with the fingers. I'll plot a point at each fingertip and look at this graceful arc that happens. And here's the interesting thing. I'll replot those points at the base of the fingers, and now it's apparent that it's a rhythm, the same arc transposed. This is also true for the dorsal side. Plot the fingertip points and draw an arc, which transposes down, kind of flattens a bit to describe the knuckle line. Look at how that rhythm is applied in these drawings. Here's the arc at the fingertips, and the transposed arc at the base of the fingers. Acknowledging these simple curves will really help you develop your drawing. Using all the tools we've talked about, it's pretty cool to see how...
Right, so first things first, acknowledge like the whole shape, basically, which I haven't been doing, I think. Yeah, I haven't been doing that. Maybe that's the reason why the fingers that I'm drawing look a little bit out of proportion, or two of them look out of proportion compared to the other two. So get the general picture, and then sort of like try to do the arcs.
How quickly these concepts come together. This rough hand drawing has gesture, form, volume, and proportion. Speaking of proportion, where the fingers begin on the palmar side is not the same point as on the dorsal side. That line's got to come back quite a ways to hit the knuckles. Proportionally, it's about a 50-50 split from wrist to knuckle to the end of the longest finger on the dorsal side, but on the palmar side, the palm gets much more space. So from this view here, the fingers hinge predictably at the knuckles. But this view is more tricky. The joint is now hidden by flesh, so we get these characteristic folds in the skin. Now these folds differ from person to person, but usually there are two prominent ones. The fold closest to the fingers is the one directly opposite the knuckles. That fold is a great landmark when you're roughing in hands on the palmar side. And remember to make sure it's rhythmically paired with the arc at the fingertips. At this stage in your practice, it's helpful to keep the hand poses very open. It just keeps the form easy to understand, and you can practice those proportions and arcing rhythms with a little more ease. Things do get a bit more complex as the hand does different poses, but don't worry, we'll get into that in the coming chapters. So again, at this stage, I'm not drawing the thumb, other than the bones and muscles we've already looked at, and I'm only indicating the fingers by virtue of those arcing rhythms. But as you can see, it's not hard to imagine the finished hand from here, which is pretty exciting. So I want to move into chapter 3 and talk more about the thumb. It has two important landmarks. This joint here, which is in the middle of that L shape we talked about and is responsible for moving the thumb laterally. It's a nice landmark because the bone is very close to the surface, which means it'll usually show up in your reference. And the second landmark is this joint here, with which we can do some finer articulation. The thumb itself is wide at this joint and tapers down at the end, but maintains a squarish appearance. The thumb is deceptively simple. If I asked you to mark off the front versus the side, if I'm thinking of a simple box, I can pretty easily tell that this is the corner. But what about from this view, where we can see more of the bottom of the thumb? The perspective becomes tricky here. I would draw the line like this. See how the top plane is getting cut off there at the end? You know what this reminds me of? The perspective on a canoe. See how the top of the canoe is hidden near the front? You know, if I kind of warp this onto the thumb, yeah, something like that. When drawing the thumb from this angle, I find it helpful to work out that broad canoe base first. Now watch this, the joint comes out from behind it. From here I'll just work out the shape. Remember how the palm had those wrinkles opposite the knuckle? The thumb has them too, and I'm using them to describe the form. From there I can track the bones with that L shape, and here I'll throw in some quick shading, mainly to separate the top plane of the thumb from the side and bottom planes. Here's another example. With the hand on the bottom there, the thumb is foreshortened, which makes it even harder to draw. But I'll start with that L shape, and then I'll find that next joint. And notice how I'm drawing over the form, like grid lines describing dimension. I'll do the exact same thing with the thumbnail. Its curvature going over the form, therefore describing the form. These are the grid lines I'm talking about. Very useful for understanding that three-dimensionality. From here I'll just rough in the rest of the hand, again using tools and observations we've talked about already. So, you see how the thumb is bent back like this? That's a very natural state. Looking back at our Klaus screenshots, literally every thumb is bent back like that. And you might think, oh, it's a cartoon, it's exaggerated. And sure, the shapes are exaggerated, but the poses aren't. If you're like me and you watch people's hands when they talk, I know, it's weird, you'll see the bent back thumb happening far more often than not. So practicing the canoe effect and really knowing where those joints go, that's integral to the quality of your hand drawings. Thankfully, it's a bit easier when the thumb is bent inward like this. I'll start off with the L shape, the joint landmarks, drawing over the form like grid lines wherever I can. When the thumb is bent, look for this kind of crow's foot shape to help describe the flesh bunching up. And speaking of bunching up, when the thumb moves in toward the palm like this, those two palmar muscle groups bunch up. This will often cause a pretty straight line between them. Gonna quickly throw in some shading here to describe the roundness of those muscle groups. And notice it's the thumb muscle group that's the most voluminous of the two. On the dorsal side of the hand, look at how the lateral movement of the thumb creates this little lump here. That's another major muscle, visible only on the dorsal side. It's a common mistake to miss it and suddenly the thumb is too close in. I found it helpful to study these studies by Disney artist Jin Kim, where he shows how including that muscle can add volume, weight, and realism to the hand. You notice how the thumb is pressed inward on all these poses? That's a situation that brings out the full volume of that muscle. Alright, that about wraps it up for the thumb. Let's move to chapter 4 and talk about the fingers. Before we do that though, a quick announcement. This video is sponsored by The Great Courses Plus. If you enjoy learning, click on the link in the description below to start your free trial at The Great Courses Plus. Okay, so we're moving on to the fingers. You can boil fingers down into a series of cylinders. But are you catching the mistake here? The start of that cylinder should be more like this, due to the palmar side of the hand getting more real estate. Next, you see these two divisions here? Those are for the two finger joints. And check this out. Remember that arcing rhythm? I'll now raise that arc back to the top, and look how perfectly it tracks through those finger joints. I call this the Wi-Fi principle, and it's always made it stick for me. Proportionally, and from the dorsal side, the middle joint divides the finger in half. Then the upper joint comes in just a little over halfway in the upper segment. But on the palmar side, the two joints appear to split the finger into thirds. Remember, this is because the proportions are different on each side of the hand. Okay, so this is a good starting point. But in the real world, you get views of the hand more like this. First, despite the foreshortened perspective here, that arcing rhythm still holds up. And now, just so we can see exactly what we're doing with these cylinders, I'll just trace them over top of the reference. I'm trying to stay mindful of where the finger starts on the palmar versus dorsal side, and placing those cylinder divisions at each finger joint. And once again, the locations of the joints are easily identified thanks to the folds in the skin. Okay, so the perspective has skewed the proportions, but the Wi-Fi is still connected. Also, the fingers will almost always overlap each other in perspective. It's typically a cascading effect. You know, a little overlap on the closer fingers, a little more overlap in the middle distance, and the most overlap furthest away. When the finger is bent, the flesh bunches up, and we get this characteristic V shape between the joints. This can pretty easily be added to the cylinders. I'm looking at the pinky finger here, and I'm constructing it first in 3 cylindrical segments, and then I'll go over this with a darker line and find the actual contours. The finger isn't fully bent here, so it's more of a softer V shape, or maybe a U shape. The cool thing about the fingernail here is it's a built-in opportunity to show the orientation and perspective of the form. In fact, let's look at the fingertip joints a little closer. I start with a cylinder-ish drawing, but it's kind of boxed off like this. This gets us thinking about the planes of the fingers. Now, you could just start with boxes altogether, but I find starting with cylinders and boxing them off later is faster. Okay, so I'm putting the fingernail in now, and this is like a mini form study. Think of the fingernail as a series of dimensional grid lines, not so different than the exercise we did at the very beginning of this lesson. Okay, next thing, you see this slope here? This is embedded in the bones, where the joint itself tends to sit high, and the form slopes a little before rising back up to the next joint. These joints have the ability to bend back a little bit too. Notice the gesture line here. Our fingers are quite flexible, especially that fingertip joint. It essentially ensures that each finger will have a built-in gesture to it and no finger will ever just be dead straight. So let that gesture define the fingers early. Also, the dorsal side proportions are laid out, and from the dorsal side we can see that webbing between fingers. And that's just the edge of the longer palm seen from the dorsal side. From this view, remember to overlap that webbing as the finger extends past it to the knuckle. From the palmar side, I'll map out my proportions, and then when I design the fingers, I'll make sure they have a bit of gesture embedded in them. And I'll just play with different gestures and shapes to see what fits best. Reminder that on the palmar side, the fingers appear to be split in thirds, and from this view, the webbing between the fingers is still there, although it's much less apparent. And while we're seeing this view, I want to point out the whole thumb assembly overlaps the palm. This helps give the hand depth. And with that, let's move into the final chapter and draw some hands. I'll start with this milk call hand. Milt Kahl was an old-school Disney animator, by the way, famous for his good draftsmanship. Anyway, I've got the thumb bones and muscle groups worked out, which allows me to gauge the proportions and rhythm of the fingers. The fingers are tricky here because due to the perspective, they overlap quite a bit. So my plan is, if I can get the pinky correct, I can use that as a reference point as I then progressively draw what's behind it. I'm using the finger joints as a way of checking myself, and now that everything is laid in, I can be much more confident in evaluating the whole thing and finding those final lines. That little bit of shading there is just to further push out those 3D forms. Alright, this is one I'd previously studied from Milt Kahl, although I'm drawing it from imagination now. There's a bit of foreshortening and finger overlap to deal with, and there's also something here that's common with hand poses. You'll often see the index finger doing its own thing, and the remaining fingers kind of clumping together. And when fingers clump together, they don't line up like soldiers. They often kind of nuzzle into or rest on top of each other. I like to think of it like how rabbits hang out. Alright, my index finger has all kinds of problems here. I think the knuckle is too high, causing the entire finger to sit too high. So late in the game here, I'm gonna fix it. And immediately this sits much better with the structure, and still satisfies the idea of the index finger breaking away from the group. Alright, let's move on to another one, this one from reference again. There are those fingers nuzzling together like rabbits. It takes practice to draw that because there's so much hidden information, but once you get the hang of it, your hand poses look so much more natural. Anyway, I worked out the wrist and thumb connection first, you know, that L shape we've been constantly referring to, and now I can work on fitting those fingers into the structure. Speaking of structure, I'm always interested in drawing over the form wherever I can. Remember those grid lines? The hand gives you many opportunities to incorporate that kind of thinking. The joints, the folds, the muscles, they can all be used to enhance that 3D structure. Anyway, at this point in the drawing, I'm just putting on some finishing touches, a darker line here, a darker line there, a bit of tone. These are about 5-minute drawings, by the way. Although I think this one here was even faster. No reference on this one, just trying to invent a very flexed type of pose. And again, that will allow me to work on the gesture of each finger. My proportions are off, so let's fix that. There we go, that's better. Coming up here, I'm going to change the angle of the wrist. Did you see it? I really think that helps sell the tension in this pose. Also remember, due to perspective, those fingers are going to overlap each other. Another reminder, even though it's not that visible in this pose, this muscle still informs the drawing. Alright, don't be scared of heavily foreshortened hands like this. Just use the tools. Connect the Wi-Fi, draw the grids, gesture out the thumb and fingers if it helps. I'm building finger by finger here so I can get the overlap right. That's one of the things that foreshortening makes difficult. Those overlaps are very specific. Even the slightest shift and your whole structure is off. Notice that the whole drawing is equally rough. Those fingers are constructed with cylinders, which I'm now refining into something more finger-like. Also, I can't see the knuckles from this view, but it's helpful to imagine those fingers connecting at a common knuckle line. And just a little scribbling of tone here on the bottom planes of things, just to help clarify that 3D construction. Okay, in this one, I want to show you a type of hand pose that happens often in animation. It uses that idea of the index finger doing its own thing and the other fingers being grouped. Except more specifically, the middle and ring finger are grouped almost as one mass. Maybe a tiny bit of separation here at the joints and here at the fingertips. But treating them as one makes them faster to draw, which of course is very helpful in animation. Anyway, and then the pinky finger will kind of follow the group, while also breaking off and doing its own thing. But not enough to take the spotlight away from the index finger. It's a bit of a formula, but the hand pose can still look pretty natural. Alright, no hand lesson would be complete without a clenched or fist type of pose, so here we go. Notice the rhythms are already in place. Now, I haven't explicitly said this yet, the number one mistake people make with hands is that they pose each finger symmetrically. But that never happens with a real hand. In a fist, for example, the volume of that thumb muscle group pushes the index finger and middle finger up. Conversely, the ring finger and pinky finger, they press up against a thinner muscle group so they can extend downward more. And when you track those changes, remember the rhythmic arcs. Another thing I want to mention, in poses like this, the L shape of the thumb bones is pretty hard to see. But you can still imagine the end of the wrist about here, tracking to this joint here, and then tracking to this joint here. And there's that L shape. This harkens back to the 3D Ruffins exercise where we learned to see through the form. And that should just about do it for this lesson. Now, there is more to cover about hand poses, and if you'd like to see a follow-up video just on that, let me know in the comments.
That's fucking crazy. Never struggle with fresh tone. Gesture drawn in 2D animation practice at the same time. What is Blender doing there? Do this and make your art more professional. What I learned from cosplay. All right. This is actually very important. I think I'm gonna watch it tomorrow. I'm gonna rewatch it tomorrow. And yeah. All right. Peace out.